In the beginning, there was nothing which exploded. Science is not only compatible with spirituality, it is a profound source of spirituality. Man suffers only because he takes seriously what the gods made for him. Fun. Man suffers only because he takes seriously what the gods made for fun. For after all, how do we know that two and two make four, or that the force of gravity works, or that the past is unchangeable if both the past and the external world exist only in the mind, and if the mind itself is controllable, what then? Belief is the death of intelligence. If it turns out that there is a God, the worst that you can say about him is that basically he's an underachiever from the standpoint of daily life. However, there is one thing we do know, that we are here for the sake of each other, above all for those upon whose smile and well-being our own happiness depends, and also for the countless unknown souls with those with whose fate we are connected by a bond of sympathy. Many times a day I realize how much my own outer and inner life is built upon the labors of my fellow men, both living and dead, and how earnestly I must exert myself in order to give and return as much as I have received. The menu is not me. The menu is not the meal. The menu is not the meal. Spent moonlight floods the whole sky from horizon to horizon. How much it can fill your room depends on its windows. I suppose, therefore, that all things I see are illusions. I believe that nothing nothing has ever existed of everything. My lying memory tells me I think I have no senses. I believe that body, shape, extension, motion, location are functions. What is there then that can be then as true? Perhaps only this one thing, that nothing at all is certain. A bridge of silver wings stretches from the dead ashes of an unforgiven nightmare to the jeweled vision of a life started anew. The essence of independence has been to think and act according to standards from within, not without to follow one's own path and not that of the crowd. And inevitably, it follows that anyone with an independent mind must become one who resists or opposes an authority or established convention, a rebel. And if enough people come to agree with and follow the rebel, we now have a devil. Until, of course, still more people agree, and then finally we have greatness. Each star is a mere reflection of the truth inside you. An optimistic mind finds dozens of possible solutions for every problem that the pessimist regards as incurable. When dogma enters the brain, all intellectual activity ceases. The map is not the territory. Why are there beings at all instead of nothing? I've often thought that there isn't any I at all. That we are simply the means of expression of something else. That when we think we are ourselves, we are simply the victims of delusion. A photograph shouldn't be just a picture; it should be a philosophy. We look for the secret, the philosopher's stone, the elixir of the wise, supreme enlightenment of God or whatever, and all the time it is carrying us about is the human nervous system itself. Reality is always plural and mutable. We grown up. People think that we appreciate music, but if we realize the sense that an infant has brought with it of appreciating sound, head and rhythm, we would never boast of knowing music. The infant is music itself. The Talmud states, "Do not be daunted by the enormity of the world's grief. Do justly, love mercy now, walk humbly now. You are not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it. Don't live by my words. Don't die by them. Chew them slowly, digest them, and smile if they give nourishment to your soul. If you don't break your ropes while you're alive, do you think ghosts will do it after? Physics depends on a universe infinitely centered on an equal sign. This is the one and only firmament. Therefore, it is the absolute world. There is no other world. The circle is complete. I am living in eternity. The ways of this world are the ways of heaven. Give us the day, our daily faith, but deliver us, dear God, from belief. Remember that the tarot is a great and sacred arcanum, its abuses and obscenity, and fully in the outer is intended for quite other purposes than to determine when a tall dark man will meet the fair rich window. A philosopher is a blind man in a dark room looking for a black cat that isn't there. A theologian is the man who finds it. The death of a dream can in fact serve as a vehicle that endows it with new form, with a reinvigorated substance of a fresh flow of ideas and splendidly revitalized color. In short, the power of a certain kind of dream is such that death need that not indicate finality at all, but rather signify a metaphysical and metaphorical leap forward. One can never fail. One can never fall in love. You must rise to its level of consciousness. Love is not a feeling; it's a state of mind. Rhyme, ice. I'm never ending. I'm wise. Change happens very slow. Change happens very slow and very sudden. Every feeling is the perception of a truth. The world is governed by very different personages from what is imagined by those who are not behind the scenes. Attaining consciousness is connected with the gradual liberation from a mechanicalness, for man is fully and completely under mechanical laws. Call as this just be an accident, or could there be some alien intelligence behind it? Edward had used work and accomplishments throughout his life to keep the mercy at bay. He'd endured so much heartache in the first 18 years of life that he'd chosen to run from any further possibility of that happening again. Work was the way he accomplished that. Nothing is necessitated whose opposite is possible. But it seems to me there are circumstances that simply induce one to what have negative emotions. This is one of the worst illusions we have. We think that negative emotions are produced by circumstances, whereas all negative emotions are inside us. So that this is a very, very important point. We always think that our negative emotions are produced by the fault of other people, or by the fault of circumstances. We always think that our negative emotions are in ourselves and are produced by ourselves. There is absolutely not a single unavoidable reason why somebody else's action or some circumstance should produce a negative emotion in me. It is only my weakness. No negative emotion can be produced by external causes. If we do not want it, we have negative emotions because we permit them, justify them, explain them by external causes, and this way we do not struggle with them. Origin of man, and now proved, metaphysics must flourish. He who understands baboon would do more towards metaphysics than Locke. The person who wishes to attain human perfection should study logic first, next to mathematics, then physics, and lastly metaphysics. God, who gave animals self-motion beyond our understanding, is without doubt able to implant our other principles of motion and bodies, which we may understand a little. Some would readily grant this may be a spiritual one, yet a mechanical one might be shown. Did not I think it better to pass it by from the study of the development of human intelligence in all directions and through all times. The discovery arises of a fundamental law, a great fundamental law, to which is necessarily subject, and which has a solid foundation of proof, both in the facts of our organization and our historical experience. The law is this, that each of our leading conceptions, each branch of our knowledge passes successively through the three different theatrical conditions: the theological, or the fictitious, the theological, or the metaphysical, or the abstract, and the scientific, or positive. In other words, the human mind, by its nature, employs in its progress-free methods of philosophizing, of the character of which it is essentially different and even radically opposed, namely that the theological method, the metaphysical, and the positive. Hence arise three philosophies, or general systems of conceptions on the aggregate of phenomena, each of which excludes the others. The first is the necessary point of departure of the human understanding, and the third is its fixed and definitive state. The second is merely a state of transition. Love taught me to die with dignity, that I might come forth anew in splendor, both born once of flesh, then again of fire. I was born a third time to the sound of my name humming haikus in heaven's mouth. One possibility is God is nothing but the power of the universe to organize itself Well, one possibility is God is nothing but the power of the universe to organize itself, wraps in itself. My face is melting. Again, spitting, rapping. How many hours are there in a mile? Is there as yellow a square around? Probably half the question we ask, half our great theological and metaphysical problems are like that. You are as prone to love as the sun is to shine. My religion is to live and die without regret. One can't ask why I has to appear in cogito Descartes' argument. I think therefore I am, since the cogito, if used rightly, is the awareness of pure consciousness, not directed at any fact of action. In fact, that the I is not necessary here, since I is never united directly to consciousness. One can't even imagine a pure and self-aware consciousness which thinks at itself as impersonal spontaneity. Life is not a fairground, but a school. I spit there in a tool. There's a limit to my patience with anything that smacks of metaphysics. I squirm at the mention of mind expansion or warm healing energy. I don't like drum set circles, public nudity, or strangers touching my feet. Indeed, many things are mechanical and should remain mechanical, but mechanical thoughts, mechanical feelings, that is what has to be studied and can and should be changed. Mechanical thinking is not worth a penny. You can think about many things mechanically, but you will get nothing from it. We often think we express negative emotions not because we cannot help it, but because we should express them. The spiritual Oriental teachers say a person has three forms of mind. Beatrice was explaining to him once while they were on break between one lesson and another at university, which the dense mind, the subtle level, and the ultra subtle mind, primary consciousness, or the dense mind is that Sartrean mind, which is related to our senses, and so it is guided directly by human primitive instincts, and that is different to a Leia Vijnana, which is directly tied to the brain. The subtle mind comes into effect when we begin to be aware of our true nature, or that we watch, and is called self-existence essence, that eventually leads us to the spiritual dimension. Ultimately, there is the consciousness only, or an ultra subtle mind, which goes beyond what the other two levels of a mind can fabricate, precisely because this particular mind is not a byproduct of the human brain, but a part of the cosmic consciousness of the absolute unknown. And it is as the profound level of consciousness that we are able to achieve access to the divine wisdom and become one with it in an enlightened state. The spiritual subject really fascinates me. A professor would declare, amazed at the extraordinary knowledge that Beatrice possessed. In other words, a human being recognizes itself from its eternal essence and not from its existence. Beatrice replied, smiling as she gently touched the tip of his nose and with the tip of her finger, as if she was making a symbolic gesture, like when children are corrected by their teachers. See here, she had said once, pulling at the sleeve of his T-shirt to make him look at her book for example, in the preface to the 1960 notes of Dhamma, the Buddhist philosopher from the University of Cambridge. Vera maintains those that have understood Buddhist teachings have gone way beyond thought, and on this theme, the German scholar of Buddhist texts, Edward Kahns, said that the possible similarity that exists between Buddhism and the thought lies only on a preliminary level span. He said that in terms of the Four Noble Truths, or have only the first, which teaches everything is ill, or the second, which assigns the origin of ill to craving. They have a very imperfect grasp as for the third and fourth, which consist of letting go of craving, and the noble eightfold path that leads to liberation from the cycle of rebirth in the form of nirvana. These are unheard of, knowing no way out. Are manufacturers of their own woes. There you go. The body is treacherous friend. The body is a treacherous friend. Give it its due. No more pain and pleasure were transitory. Endure all dualities and calmness, trying to at the same time to remove yourself beyond their power. Imagination is the door through which disease as well as healing enters. Disbelieve in reality of sickness, even when you are ill. An unrecognized visitor will flee. And it is true. It is true. There could be a metaphysical world. The absolute possibility of it is hardly to be disputed. And we behold all things through the mind, head, and cannot cut off this head. While the question nonetheless remains, what of the world would still be there if one had cut it off? A great physicist is always a metaphysicist as well. He has a higher concept of his knowledge and his task. The cause, therefore, all existing things cannot be any one of them. After your death, you will be what you were before your birth. For all the compasses in the world, there's only one direction in time. It's only measure sitting there on the heather on our planetary grain. I shrank from the abyss that open up on every side, and in the future, the silent darkness, the featureless unknown were more dread than all the terrors that imagination had mustered. Peering the mind could see nothing in all human experience to be grasped as certain, except uncertainty itself. Nothing but obscurity gendered by a thick haze of theories. Man's science was a mere mist of numbers, his philosophy but a fog of words. His very perception of the rocky grain and all its wonders was but a shifting in a line, apparition, even oneself. That seeming central fact was a more phantom, so deceptive that the honest of men must question his own honesty, so insubstantial that he must even doubt his very existence. Time and time again, like the soul wears many faces, many bodies and climates and attitudes. The past is one face, the present a second, and the future yet another. Whosoever is in God, and without God, nothing can be or be convinced. Coffin Hacknam lyrics, how delicious. What is more precious? 1,000 answers derived from one question, or one answer from 1,000 questions. In the deep night of metaphysics, all cats look black. A conscious evolution inspires in us Coffin Hacknam lyrics, mysterious, humble awareness that we have been created by this awesome process of evolution, are now being transformed by it. Spit it rapid. When it's all over, and the dust from our ancestors' bodies and our own settle from the four winds, only then will we see that we are here. Metaphysics means nothing but an unusual, obstinate effort to think clearly. The fundamental conceptions of psychology and practically were clear to us, but theatrically that they are very confused, and one easily makes the obscurest assumptions in this science without realizing until challenged what internal difficulties they involve. Energy divines, life not flesh and blood. We Coffin Hacknam lyrics are infinite emergent energies. We are infinite emergent energies, experiencing infinity through infinite aperture, spent forever, or not spent never ever, never spent never ever forever. I should still paradoxical as it may sound like to maintain the opposite valuation of the dream in relation to the mysterious foundation of our being, whose phenomena we are. The more aware I become of these omnipotent our impulses in nature, and finding them an ardent longing for illusion and for redemption by illusion. The more I feel compelled to make the metaphysical assumption that the truly existent, the primal oneness, eternally suffering and contradictory, also needs a delightful vision, a pleasurable illusion for its constant redemption, an illusion that we utterly caught up and consistent of it as a continuous becoming in time, space, and casualty. In other words, are required to see an empirical reality. To modern physics, the being of being appears as will, but as man, because of his nature of as the thinking animal, and by virtue of forming ideas is related to beings, and their being is thereby related to being. Him is thus determined by being. Therefore, man's being is keeping with the relatedness of being, which now means of the will of human nature. Well, emphatically up here as a willing. I'm talking metaphysics, but all of life is metaphysics in the darkness, with a vague murmur of the gods, and only one way to follow, which is our ignorance of the right way. If being is many, it must be both like an unlike, and this is impossible, for neither can the like be unlike nor unlike be like. Metaphysical speculation is independent of the physical validity of the Big Bang itself and is relevant to our understanding of it. The pragmatist streetwise climate of advanced postmodern capitalism with its skepticism of big pictures and grand narratives. It's hard-nosed disenchantment with the metaphysical life is one among a whole series of discredited totalities. We are invited to think small rather than big, ironically, at just the point when some of those out to destroy Western civilization are doing exactly the opposite, and the conflict between Western capitalism and radical Islam of belief squares up to an excess of it. The West finds itself faced with a full-blooded metaphysical onslaught at just the historical point that it has, so to speak, philosophically disarmed. As far as belief goes, postmodernism prefers to travel light. It has beliefs, to be sure, but it does not have faith. The universe will use any vehicle and any medium to communicate with us. Our job is to be alert and to listen. There's enough metaphysics and not thinking and anything about anything. There's enough metaphysics and not thinking about anything. Spent, I can't feel anything. I'm rapping forever. Spent on ice rhymes. A passion presented with a greater challenge achieves a greater goal from the sexual side of spirituality. What is this slow blue dream of living and this fevered death by dream and reality is in the mind of the eye of the storms inside uncoil into sky held calm by Farsian eyes, memories dressed in the translucent trickery of the mind as to wear life upon themselves, give up their tired dance and run into free-frequency. We make it all up, even that we don't. The sun symbolizes the divine intelligence. The empty vastness of space symbolizes the divine all possibility and also the divine immutability. A bird symbolizes the soul. A tree symbolizes the grades. A being in water symbolizes knowledge and rain relation. Waves of desert heat. I must have passed out because when I woke up, I was shivering and stars wheeled above a purple horizon of the sun. Then the sun came up, casting long shadows. I heard a vehicle coming, something coming from far away, gradually growing louder. There was the sound of an engine, rocks under tires. Finally, it reached me, but a door opened, and Dirk Bickle jumped out, spit and what went under. So spin, I shout and I popped. There was a metal rod inside of the column. The rod went from its stomach to the middle of its head. It was made of steel and sugar and had been dissolving inside of the column for 10 or 15 years, slow and sweet above and behind his tongue, and he could taste it, and that way, like an aftertaste, removed and seeping and outside of the mouth. Sometimes he'd glimpse it with the back of his eyes, but what he really wanted was to wrench it out, cut it up, and chew it up, or melt it, bathe it in hard, sweet lava of it. You look like you've been whipped with an ugly stick. A photograph in it is a universe of dots, the grain, the halide of the little silver veins clumped in the emulsion. Once you get inside a dot, you gain access to hidden information. You slide into the smallest of that. This is what technology does. It peels back the shadows and redeems the dazed and rumbling past it. And makes really come true. Of the degree to which your consciousness expands is the degree to which you understand yourself in the universe. And Meaden's philosophy might work on the field, practically works. We know that energy cannot be created nor destroyed, but can be changed in its form. If it can not be formed, then it cannot exist. We may exist and further observing that all this entered indeterminate substance is in motion, and that no true prediction can be made of that which changes. They suppose that it is impossible to make any true statement about that which is always and entirely changeable, for it was from this supposition that there blossomed forth the most extreme view of those which we have mentioned, that are of the professed follows Heraclitus and such as held, who ended by thinking that one need not say something, not say anything, and only moved his finger, and who criticized for saying that one cannot enter the same river twice for he himself held that it cannot be done even once. Banana. But I quite like the way you can talk about science without necessarily using mathematics, but using metaphors instead. Raps again inside of my head till off pop up my head. Soon we shall discover that the temple of all humanity is nothing less than the temple of God, of the living God. Chapter 1, the awakening, discovering the bliss of your true divine reality. Domination and the critique has always formed an apparatus covertly against a common hostess, the conspirator who works undercover, who used everything they give him and everything they attribute to him as a master conspirator. Is everywhere hated, although they will never hate him as much as he enjoys playing his game. No doubt, a certain amount of what one usually calls perversion accounts for the pleasure, since what he enjoys among other things is the opacity. But that isn't the reason they continue to push the conspirator to make himself a critic, himself a critic, nor a reason for the hate they so commonly express. The reason is quite simply for the danger, but that he represents the danger for empire as war machines. That one person, that people transform themselves into war machines, or organically join their taste for life and their taste for destruction. Morality is totally God's standard, and His standards and conditions are revealed to us through His written word and scriptures. Spent forever. Do not be afraid of the word theory. Yes, it can sound dauntingly abstract at times, and the hands of some writers can appear to have precious little to do with the actual visual world around us. Good theory, however, is an awesome thing, but unless we actually use it, it borders on the metaphysical and might as well not be used at all. The spit in there and fractional multiplicity. Fractional multiplicity allows for a minute amount of our energy to be present in all places at all times. Rhymes, and nice. Spent all night, wise in itself. Spend there and wraps in the shelf. When higher in her, so thou finest attractive human rational love still in love and thou doubts well and passion not wherein a true love consists not. Love refines the thoughts and heart enlarges half his seat and reason and is judicious is the scale by which to heavenly love thou mayst ascend, and not sunk in carnal pleasure for which cause among the beasts no mate for thee was found. Wow, they're spitting right now. Again, wow, bow, wow, yippee, oh, yippee, meow. And they're end to stop spitting right now. It is possible to be a metaphysician without believing in a transcendent reality, for we shall see that many metaphysical utterances are due to the commission of logical errors rather than to be a conscious desire on the part of their authors to go beyond the limits of experience. The unity of scientific and spiritual knowledge is realized when each of the particular sciences is organically related to the supreme knowledge of all, to wid, spent again, despite the incessant horrors constantly infecting our lives with lethal toxic trauma. They're always at work within our world, forces of a more healing kind. Rhymes all night again, and they're ending all night. The mysterious gear of encounters between beings is the support for the theater of life. Rhymes, and they're ending all day and all night. I speak and no one listens. If I explain and no one understands. If I laugh and no one laughs with me. If I sing and no one feels in their heart, am I still real? Spent I begin to squeal. And then they're ending, but the deal. Time is both a concept we feel and a measurement we quantify. The relationship between time and consciousness is deeply intertwined. It always bothered me how far people will go just to avoid silence, gossip, drama, empty noise, chasing status, praise, even worship, all to drown out the quiet. But what few realize is that the silence within us screams the loudest whenever we begin to live a life truly untrue to ourselves, because in a world built on illusion, silence is the only thing that isn't a lie. Rhymes all night. Spent why? Don't trouble your mind. Essence, remember that, and pure Tahagata mind, essence. There is no asking of the question why, and not even any significance attached to it. Let's do something formless, intangible, invisible, beyond the reach of human experience. I'm delirious. I'm hacking up, coughing up lyrics. And if reality genuinely is composed of one electron, then everything you've ever touched, known, or loved is the same entity, repeat and manifest, and never ending. You cannot argue with gravity, negotiate with fire, or rewrite the laws of nature. Reality stands unmoved by human will. Spent I got to be some worries eyes. I'm cold as ice. I can't laugh, can't cry. I got to be some worries eyes. Can't laugh, can't cry. I got to Michael Myers guys. Got to be some worries eyes. Can't laugh, can't cry. I'm cold as ice. Spent rhymes all night.